Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to My Expanded Universe, a show where I go through the entire EU in chronological order as best I know how. Folks, it's time to read the Star Wars Adventures by Ryder Windham. No, not Episode 1, the Episode 2 Adventures by Ryder Windham. Now, if you recall, these are from the Star Wars Kids membership thing at the Kids Club or something, where you got a book, a game book, puzzle piece or something like that. You got just a bunch of stuff every month. You had to pay like 15, 20 bucks a month for it. I think it was 15 bucks a month at the time. And of course I paid it because I have to have all EU stuff. But this was the Episode 2 Adventures, kind of. They're just called Star Wars Adventures. Same author and everything. There were 13 books in all, yet you only need to collect the first 6, because 7 through 13 were disappointingly reprints of the first series. I was super disappointed when I discovered that. As I was getting my membership, I was like, no, they stopped at 6? Remember, the last series went 15 books, and only the last 3 were books of, they weren't needed. It was like a children's retelling of Episode 1, which I really didn't care for. But in this one, they only did 6 original stories within the EU. Gosh, I wish we could have had more. But let's review each one of those by Ryder Windham today. Now, the first book is called Hunt for the Sunrunner. And in this one, Obi-Wan and Anakin are sent to Fondor to solve a crisis. Remember, all 6 of these books is basically one big story arc. And it starts off with, Obi-Wan and Anakin. Now, there is another character who is in this series. And it's the only time in the EU where we see this character. Butlar Swan. And you're thinking, wait, that kind of sounds familiar. Who is that? She was the Jedi in Episode 2. We only got to see her for a few minutes or on screen. And yet there's nothing about her in the expanded universe. But for some strange reason, Ryder picks her out and gives her a character. Now remember last week I talked about how Mace Windu just wasn't given any depth and how they could take movie characters out. Well, this is one character they took that only Ryder Windham took and gave her a personality. And I'll be honest, it was kind of interesting to get to know that Jedi. But I was kind of shocked doing my study, and I found out there's no other reference of her within the EU. Just this book and the next book was where she was featured in Ryder Windham's series. I don't know why Ryder Windham decided to use her, but I found it very interesting that we explore a character that no one's ever explored before, and well, now that I'm explaining it, maybe that's the purpose. All right, so let's go to Book 2. Book 2 is Cavern of the Screaming Skulls. In this, Obi-Wan and Anakin get separated after the events of the first novel, and Obi-Wan gets Swan's help to track down Anakin and rescue him from the Skull Queen. Okay, and let's back up a minute. Did you see the title of that? Cavern of the Screaming Skulls. I'm not sure, but I think Ryder is going for Best EU book title ever, right? I remember reading that going, whoa, Cavern of the Screaming Skulls. That sounds awesome. Skull Queen, I'm in. But one of the sad things about the Star Wars adventure books is they did not spend any money on cover art. Nope, they just took a picture from the movie and made that the cover. And it was kind of disappointing because I would have loved to have seen some covers from these stories. Can you imagine this? Cavern of the Screaming Skulls. Ooh. It may be one of the best covers ever. But yeah, it was kind of lazy on the covers, and oh well. So let's go to book number 3. Now, book number 3 shifts the focus a little bit to Mace Windu and Kit Fisto. It's called The Hostage Princess, and it's where those two Jedi go on a mission to save the princess. Now, this happens shortly after the events of book 2, so it's all in one continuity. They all happen back to back to back. And they reference that at the very beginning of the book. but this is a separate story with two separate Jedi. Because you've been playing, remember that this book series also came with a game attached to it. So you could read maybe the first chapter and then go play the game. Just play out the adventure as those characters. Well, in the first two books, it was Obi-Wan and Anakin who you're playing as. Well, now it's time to switch it up, right, for the kiddies, so you can play as Mace Windu or Kit Fisto through these adventures. Now, I never played the game. To me, it really wasn't that interesting. I paid my $15 just to get that book. I threw the rest of the stuff either away or in a closet. I think I may still have them in a closet now. But I have no intention of playing the game for that. I just wanted to read the little kiddie book. But they switched it up with Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, characters who have been explored mildly. It's just one big adventure. What can I say? Let's go to book 4. Now, in book 4, what Ryder does is he switches it. Instead of playing as good guys, you're playing as the bad guys. And book 4 is Jango Fett versus the Razor Eaters. Come on. With a title like that, I would have loved to have seen a cover. But here, Jango Fett is on a mission from Dooku. He's going out to complete a mission. And books 4, 5, and 6 basically follow Jango's story arc. Now, of course, it's fun to play as Jango. It's action-packed, right? With a word like Razor Eaters, you know it's got to be good. And that's one little fault about the books, though. They are adventure-based. Like, they end on cliffhangers. And, oh no, can Jango defeat these people? Oh, yes, he can on the next chapter. But then he goes to the next challenge. Because remember, this was written as also to function as a game for children. So keep that in mind if you ever get these books. You're thinking, well, these aren't that awesome, Matt. Well, yeah, that's because they were based off this game, and Ryder had to write things that way. All right, so let's go to book number 5, which was The Shapeshifter Strikes. Now, this is dealing with Zam Wesell, as she is now jumping on that bounty provided by Dooku. Zam is only featured in this book. She may say her goodbyes in book number 6, but book number 5 is her book. You can play as Zam. And you could tell Ryder was having a lot of fun bringing these episode 2 characters in, kind of giving them a little bit of character, a little bit of flavor. We don't see much of Zam Wesell. In fact, she's kind of underused too. Seeing the role that she had in episode 2, you think they'd use her more. And I guess she just didn't take off. But we had that one shot, and now we have Ryder Windham's book. And like I said, in this children's book, he can't do much, but what he does with her is pretty good. Now, there are some other characters in these books, and I'm about to talk about the second story arc and those other characters within in just a moment. But first, let me talk about book number 6. It's called The Warlords of Balmorra, and it's about Jango Fett, Aurra Sing, Bossk, Score, you name it. They have bounty hunters galore in this one. Now, Aurra Sing is a character where, you know, I think they really wanted her to take off. They did a good job in Dark Horse's comic book storyline. Novels, she was largely ignored. And in this one, Ryder brought her back in. I was happy to see her because I was kind of cheering for her to be, you know, somewhat more interesting than what we've read before. And he does a good job. Now, Bossk is in this as well because this story arc also has to deal with his father, Kratos. And Kratos is also mentioned in the Bounty Hunter Wars. Ryder Windham knows this because he lightly foreshadows Bounty Hunter Wars, meaning the division between the Fetts and the Bounty Hunter Guild are kind of shown in this book. Again, how smart is Ryder Windham to do this to a children's series made specifically for children where they're not even going to do cover art for, where they basically told him, hey, just write some schlock, we'll put it in a book and sell it as adventures for kids. But yet he's like, okay, but he took his time and made sure to connect as much continuity as he could while doing it. I am very impressed again by continuity alone. Forget the storyline, because overall the story was, you know, all 6 books, it's okay. You know, I wouldn't say it's a must-read, and it's not anything like Jude Watson's books. But seeing the perimeters that Ryder Windham had to stay within, you know, just the limitations he had, he actually really makes a good story out of this. And so the animosity between Kratos and Jango trickle down for when his son Boba grows up and has to deal with Bosca's father as well. So I think that's very cool. Another bounty hunter that I just mentioned, you're saying Score. Who is Score, Matt? He was a bounty hunter from the old Marvel comic book series. Now remember, Ryder was a big fan of the EU, and he would take characters from different medias and attach them in his story. And Score was a bounty hunter. You're kind of familiar with him if you've read the Marvel comic books. He's, hard to forget. But that he put Score in there. I got excited when I read the 6th book. It's like, oh, Score's in it, yay! And he has speaking roles and everything, and it's really interesting. Another character that you may recall who's in this series is Grodu the Hutt. Now, Matt, who is that? Well, go back to my first reviews on Star Wars Adventures, and I think Grodu is in books 3 and 4. He took a character that he created from the first Star Wars Adventures and brought him back in for another round in the second round of Star Wars Adventures. Brilliant. He even connects his own stuff. I love all the connections in such a, what should be, an insignificant book. But Ryder doesn't treat it as that. And that's what I've been trying to say. So many people say, oh, the authors didn't care about what they wrote. They just wrote something and got a paycheck. That is not the case. It's the case in some cases I've talked about. Yeah, I can see where you could say that, because I think there were even some novels that were just cash grabs. But for these books, Ryder really takes his time, does his homework, and puts together a well thought out story. So, that being said, should you get these Star Wars Adventures? Coin flip, it's up to you. I mean, if you're like me, you want to have every EU novel out there, then yeah, get them. I don't know how hard they are to get. I haven't searched for these in years, or actually never. I bought them when they came out, and they were super expensive because you had to buy the whole membership kit, $15 a month, remember? But at least you have me telling you, just get the first 6, forget about the rest. All right, folks, that's all the time I have for today. I'll see you next week with another video.